Hi everyone, I'm Susan Mulvihill. I am so excited today because I'm going to plant all of my annual containers. I hope you'll join me for lots of tips and ideas. One of the great things about planting annuals in containers is that you can really pack them into a pot, and that's because they're just going to live there for the growing season, right? So one of the things that I did first was I went to one of my favorite greenhouses here in Spokane, and that's Liberty Park Greenhouse. Let me show you the options that I had. Oh my goodness. Let's talk about the different plants that I'm hoping to squeeze into the pots. I might be pressing my luck, but I'm going to give it a go. So the first plant on the left is Tropicana Gold Canna Lily. And you might recall that I've been overwintering my canna lily bulbs for about 3 years now. It's very simple, and you can find a video on it on my YouTube channel, and you'll find out how simple it is to do. So that's going to have yellow flowers with a tinge of orange, which I think is really cool. The next plant to the right is a salvia called Rockin' Deep Purple, and this is one that will attract hummingbirds. It's going to have really dark purple flowers, which I think is going to look cool. The next plant to the right with those gorgeous chartreuse leaves is another type of salvia. It's actually a pineapple sage. It's called Golden Delicious, and it's going to have orange flowers on it. So I think we're going to have a really cool color combination. The next one to the right with the little yellow flowers is Lantana. Lantana is a hummingbird magnet, and so that was definitely in my criteria, and they really like sun, so that's going to be a perfect choice. And then the next one is a sweet potato vine. It's called Blackie. I love the shapes of the leaves, and that's going to cascade over the edge of the pot, which should really look nice. The next thing I wanted to show you is one of my 2 new deck planters. This is the Terrazza self-watering planter. It came from Gardener's Supply, and I just love it. If you've seen any of my past videos about planting containers, you know I'm a huge proponent of self-watering containers. They are very much worth seeking out. The idea behind them is that there's a reservoir down in the bottom of the pot, and the plant's roots are evenly watered, which is great. So if you need to go out of town for a few days, the plants will continue to be watered. So if I turn this on end just so you can see inside, there is a platform here. You're going to be planting on top of this platform, on top of where the reservoir is. And then one thing that's new with this type of pot is it has an upright tube here, and that's where water goes in to refill that reservoir. And what my husband is going to do is he's going to put a drip irrigation tubing in here, and what that's going to do is it will refill the reservoir automatically every time that the sprinklers come on. How perfect is that? To fill your containers, I heartily recommend that you use some type of a potting soil. That's because potting soils are soilless, meaning that they don't contain soil, obviously, and soil can contain disease pathogens, and you certainly don't want to expose your plants to any types of diseases. Potting soil is light, it's fluffy, it's easily moistened, and really easy to work with. So that's what I'm going to use for planting today's pots. The next step is for me to add potting soil to this container up to about 3 inches from the top. And one of the things I did before that is I added in some slow release fertilizer to the potting soil. The reason I did that is ordinarily I would just sprinkle the fertilizer at the surface of the container. But because these are going to get watered from the bottom, that didn't make a lot of sense. So I think this way the plants will still get a little bit of food and grow well. The next thing I'm doing is I'm just sort of auditioning where these plants are going to go before I actually plant them. And I think all 5 are going to go in. We've got the 2 salvias, the lantana, the sweet potato vine, and of course the canna lily. It's going to be a tight fit, but like I said, they're just in here for the growing season, and so I think we'll be fine. I think it's going to look really nice. As you unpot your different plants, if you see a plant that is really root bound like this, I would definitely tease apart those roots. I would kind of pull them out a little bit, because otherwise the roots are just going to keep circling in that area, and I'd rather have them wiggle their toes in the soil. I'm even going to pull off part of that root. Okay, this pot is all planted. I think it looks really nice. The plants are small right now, but they're certainly going to fill in as the season goes on. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the plant tags in an area where you can't really see them, but just in case somebody stops by and they're looking at this and they say, wow, what is this really cool plant here? I can pull out those tags and I can tell them exactly which variety they are. Alrighty, both pots are planted now, and I'm really pleased with how they turned out. The next step is to water everything in really well, and then I'm going to fill up the water reservoir. The nice thing with these pots is with that fill tube, it has a max fill line, and so I know exactly how much water to put in. The last container for my deck is this railing planter, and it also came from Gardener's Supply, and it's also a self-watering container. It has a reservoir down in the bottom. My husband is going to put a drip tube to this as well so that it waters automatically. And yes, I do appreciate him a lot because he makes watering things a breeze around here. Now I'm sticking with my purple and yellow theme, and I've got the tags stuck in here so that I can tell you what these are. So this yellow one is a Calibrachoa or Million Bells, and it's called Pure Yellow, and it is absolutely a glorious shade of yellow. And then this bluey purple trailing lobelia is called Techno Heat Electric Blue. I love plant names. So those are getting tucked in there. One thing I wanted to mention is that when you are planting your containers, don't put the soil right up to the lip of the container, because every time you water it, it's going to wash over the side, it's going to make a mess, and it will drive you nuts. So don't do that. And then the other thing is make sure that you don't have the top of the root system of the plants sticking up above the potting soil that you've added to the pot, because that's a really easy way for the plants to dry out quickly. The next containers I'm going to plant are 2 inserts for my front porch Picket planters. And anytime you have a container that has large drainage holes, what I like to do on the inside of the pot is to place a coffee filter over the hole. And that prevents the potting soil from running out the bottom when you're watering them. Okay, the first container has been planted, and those 4 geraniums that you see with that beautiful coral blossom are Americana coral. These are a zonal geranium that I overwintered last year, and they have done really well, except I'm hoping they will fill in a lot more than they have so far. That purple flowered plant in the middle of the container is Browalia Endless Illumination. It does best in part shade to shade, and that will work well because this container will be on our front porch, which gets a little bit of morning sun and a little bit of afternoon sun. It's supposed to grow 12 to 16 inches tall, so that should fill in that middle gap very nicely. The 2 plants that are cascading over the front on either side of the Browalia are Taurinia Summer Wave Bouquet Deep Blue. I've grown Taurinia before. It blooms like crazy. It is absolutely gorgeous. And I love those tubular flowers. The deep purple of those blooms should contrast very nicely with the coral geraniums. The last 2 containers I need to plant are my hanging baskets for our front porch. They are going to be filled with ivy geraniums. Now you might recall that last year I grew a beautiful zonal geranium that is in the coral color again, but it's called Temprano Orange. Now, something I have learned over the last 2 winters is that ivy geraniums do not like to be overwintered by the same method I use to overwinter my zonal geraniums. I don't know why, I don't understand it, but I've talked to people who are experts and they have said, yeah, we just don't have any luck overwintering them that way. So what I did is I took cuttings last fall, and they are doing okay, but they're kind of struggling. You can see they're pretty small. So I'm just going to put half in one container, half in the other, make sure they get plenty of food, and I'm hoping for the best. So you'll have to see how they are doing later in the season. Phew, I am all finished, but I'm really happy with how all the containers planted up. I do have to be honest though, I bought a few more geraniums because I needed to fill out that second container. Even though I have a large garden and wonderful flower beds everywhere, it is so nice to dress up our front porch and our deck with containers. It really makes a big difference. I hope all of this was helpful and interesting to you, and I'll see you next time around.